Welcome to the RevRoom. I'm your host, Rachel Bryant. Join me each episode as we discuss the strategies of top marketing practitioners, uncovering the tactics that transform ideas into revenue. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or an aspiring leader, the RevRoom is your go-to source for actionable advice and industry trends. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome back to the RevRoom podcast. At Inverta, we've long advocated that the most powerful marketing happens at the intersection of strategy and execution. We see this play out especially well when account-based marketing and customer advocacy teams align their efforts strategically. Today, we're diving into how this alignment creates a revenue-generating flywheel that outperforms traditional approaches. I'm joined by David Coates and Ivonne Smith, both from Forder. They've pioneered an approach that doesn't rely on lavish budgets, but instead leverages authentic customer relationships to influence high-value prospects. If you're looking to break down silos between your marketing teams and create a more cohesive revenue engine, you'll want to take notes. Let's dive in and explore how customer advocacy can supercharge your ABM efforts and deliver measurable business impact. Well, welcome everybody back to the RevRoom. We're really excited about our guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about generating a revenue flywheel, which we'll hear a little bit more, I think, in a bit with our guests. So I'd like to welcome David Coates and Ivonne Smith from Forder to the podcast today. Welcome, you guys.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just have you guys introduce yourselves a little bit. Tell us about your role and what you do at Forder, and maybe a little bit of background and your experience. So, Ivonne, I'll start with you. Ladies first.
All right, thank you. So I'm the director of ABX here at Forder, and I have been here for a year and a half, almost 2 years. This is the third time I've pioneered an ABX program within an organization, and I'm based here in actually right outside of Phoenix, Scottsdale, in a little town called Fountain Hills, Arizona. Good to be here.
Yeah, great. Pioneering ABX. Yes, I love it. That's great.
I love it.
David, how about you?
Yeah, so David Coates. I've been with Forder for almost 6 years now, and joined to build, like Ivonne, pioneering, to build their customer marketing program. And so it's been a great journey. Customer marketing is something I'm super passionate about. Been in the industry for about 15 years, and he built Camp Boston, which is one of I like a customer marketing advocacy group as well. And so based just north of Boston, so in Andover, and been in the States about 25 years already. So time flies by.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, welcome you guys to the podcast. We're really excited to have you here, as I said. Okay, what we like to do, just to break the ice a little, get everybody comfortable, is have you bring your favorite mugs, which I know you did, and tell us a little story about them. So I like to share one of me, and I'll go through mine pretty quickly, but I brought one of my mugs today, which is, I think everybody has one of these like picture mugs, that you get from, one of those online picture companies. But anyways, this one is of me and my family several years ago up in beautiful Petoskey, Michigan. This actually was my grandmother's Christmas present from my grandmother from us one year.
Aww.
She passed away a couple years ago, and I was doing some organization a couple weekends ago, and found this in a box that my dad had sort of put together all of the pictures of our family and stuff that she had in her house. So cheers to my grandma. So it's a great little memory mug as well. So Ivonne, tell us about yours.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's super special. So my favorite mug is my Dr. Seuss mug, and it's my favorite because I actually have 2 boys, and one is going off to college next year. The other one's 16, off and driving. And this reminds me of when they were little. It's a little trip that we took to Florida and to Universal Studios, but it's also apropos for today, because yesterday was Earth Day, and my favorite Dr. Seuss character is the Lorax. So
yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. How about you, David?
Fantastic. And keeping the family theme going. So mine, anybody familiar out there, these are Starbucks mugs. And I was introduced to them by my former CMO at Forder. He had everybody over to Seattle, and he gave everybody a Seattle mug, brought it home, and I drank my cup of tea out of it every single day.
Yes.
And then this last Christmas holiday, my daughter actually gifted me a Boston one.
Oh.
So I now rotate through both of them. Today is definitely a Boston day. So hence you'll see me drinking my coffee from my Boston mug.
The collection begins. Yeah.
Yes, coffee, tea. We like whatever you want to put in your mug. We love. So
Yeah.
that's great. I love those Starbucks mugs. They're one of my favorites because they're nice and big and they're
Mhm.
hefty. And I do like the little squatty shape of them.
Mhm.
They're a good souvenir from a
Yes.
city. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. If you can find good ones. So
Right.
we went to the Florida Keys for spring break and we were like, oh, Florida Keys, Starbucks mug. And it was a Florida Starbucks
Yeah.
mug. It's not the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
So, well, all right. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for sharing. And I know you came on to share a little bit about the story about how you guys at Forder combine your ABM, ABX approach with your customer advocacy, and you work together and partner together so to really help generate more revenue for the organization. So that's what we want to talk about today. So, before we talk a little bit about those details, Ivonne, I know you, when we were talking earlier, you call it ABX at Forder, and would love a little bit more about why. Like, why do you do that? I know you're not the only company that we know and that we
Right.
work with here at Inverted that does that, but curious about what your reasoning is and the history behind that.
Right. I'm super passionate about calling it ABX because it really does reflect a mind shift. And it's like you said, it's not just me or just Forder. It's definitely industry wide, but it's really taking the idea of account-based marketing from a marketing-led campaign that's very siloed and marketing pushing it to a company-wide really orchestration. And that includes sales, customer success, SDRs, the product team, executives, the broader marketing team, which includes David. We have a fabulous events team, even our designers and our content writers. I mean, everybody is really, putting their arms around this program and prioritizing it. And it's really crafting experiences that are for the prospects, for the customers, and not just messaging at them or to them, because it's really designed so that they understand we do prioritize them. We want to know them better. We do understand them as well. And so that really makes, I would say, the prospects, from what we've heard, and the customers feel seen and really understood and valued and not just targeted by marketing, so to speak.
Yes, I think that's a great point, Yvonne, that you make. It's really the key differentiator between ABM activities and targeted demand gen. Really, like anybody can pick a list and go after a list, right? Talk at them, but really to tailor those key messages specifically to those accounts is what really sets it apart.
Yes, exactly.
Great, David. Tell me a little bit about, you've pioneered a lot of customer advocacy, customer-led growth strategies. Tell me a little bit about how you've seen the role of customer advocacy sort of evolve in B2B marketing over the last several years.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an interesting journey. As I mentioned at the top, it's an area I kind of stumbled into about 15 years ago. And I think that's must be true for a lot of customer marketing, customer advocacy practitioners, right? It's not like you go to school and be like, oh, I want to go and do customer marketing. And so really it's a field that emerged really through like customer referencing programs and also just like customer programs in general, like, hey, we want to do more comms or whatever else with the customer. And that's where it really started. And I think what happened is a lot of companies put in place referencing programs to support sales. And so the value there is obviously helping to drive new business that way. I think what happened over the last few years has been this evolution from a measure of activity, like how many references do you have, how many case studies do you have, into a lot of folks now thinking about how does customer marketing actually help to drive the business.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, even though we've all pursued very different paths, I mean, my background actually is in comms and PR originally, what we're starting to coalesce around is the idea that, at the end of the day, if we can attach ourselves to the big programs, the big North Star metrics, then that's really valuable. And what you're seeing right now is that customer marketing is starting to be responsible for expansion and cross-sell and upsell and customer journey as well, right? So it's really evolved, and it's moving from a measure of things and stuff into a measure of impact, which I'm super excited about as well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, tell me, you guys, a little bit about how the partnership between the ABX team and your strategy, Yvonne, and the customer advocacy group, David's team, sort of evolved. How did this start? How did you start working together? And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I can jump in, David, and you always have wonderful color to add to all good stories. So I think what I'll start with is we have the amazing good fortune here at Forder to have sort of a trifecta of really great support to create this good advocacy program in alignment with the ABX program. And what that is we, from an ABX perspective, we have this ABX all encompassing the whole company supporting ABX piece. Second, we have incredible customers that love our product. That's the third piece. We have a great product. So then when you tie in someone like David and his team with customer advocacy, aligned to those customers to highlight and tell their stories and really support them and bring their, and really, again, just to support them, that creates this beautiful experience where we can work together to promote our customers and their brands, but also share what it is they love about our product. And it really just ties in perfectly into an ABX program because we can work together to make sure that our prospects and anybody else at other companies can actually meet our customers and hear why they love our product. So it's really incredibly beautiful to be in a place where you have a great supported ABX program, amazing customers with a solid customer advocacy team, plus an incredible product.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You've got like this three-legged stool with maybe a fourth
Oh,
leg that's really made it real solid. Yeah.
yeah.
David, how did this come about? Like, what were the conversations that were had internally? And then you were like, hey, we've got to blend these two things
Yeah,
together. Customer
exactly.
advocacy can support our ABX initiatives.
So, I mean, as I mentioned, I've been with Fodder for almost 6 years. And so we were starting to see this naturally evolve organically anyway, right? And I think what Ivonne did up with her team is really brought a focus. And so we went from, thinking about, okay, so we've got this tactical opportunity or this event, for example, to Yvonne was then like, okay, so we're working the program now. And she talked about being pioneering, but we're going to have a set number of accounts in the ABX program. We've got dedicated ABX managers, obviously, which is very familiar to all your listeners, obviously. And then from there, it was really figuring out, okay, so as we think about these accounts, what are we actually trying to do with them? And it was really that start of that conversation, which brought a lot of the tactical stuff that we were doing, so the program work that we were doing, and Yvonne mentioned events and stuff. Obviously, increasingly after COVID, business is personal again, right? So it was really about kind of meeting our customers where they were and really figuring out with Yvonne's team, how do you do that in a strategic way where it feels like a win for our prospects, it feels like a win for our customers, and at the end of the day, it's also a big win for Forte.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yvonne, does having customer advocacy sort of helping with that influence any of the selection criteria around your accounts? Like, how are you selecting your accounts that you're focused on for your ABX programs?
Yeah, so what we look at is the relationships that exist. Absolutely, it does when you think about it. We also look at intent and fit from a industry perspective. There's some criteria. We have a scorecard. We, weigh the different criteria and sort of surface which accounts rise to the top. We have a lot of accounts that are submitted for the ABX program. We just can't do them all. But absolutely, when you think about the relationship perspective, one of the line items is there a connection? Do we know that, do we have some sort of internal or external connection that we can potentially use to connect and just really get to know these prospects and have an introduction? So I would say it definitely weighs into it. But it also weighs into the broader strategy because something that actually I could share something that when I was interviewing for Forder, one of the really great bits of information that drew me to the company was, I think it was my manager that said, if we can get our prospects in the room with the customer will sell the deal because the customers love it so much. So I knew going into this job, I didn't know David existed yet. That was just a blessing that came after the fact. But I knew if we could work with the great events team that we have, as well as customer advocacy, certainly getting them in the room together is going to make all the difference. So it does play into it in different ways.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear some examples of how you
Mm,
guys have done that and gotten the customers
mm,
into the room. We'll get there. David, tell me a little bit about then how do you marry the right customers with the
mm,
right opportunities? So you're
mhm.
looking at the strategy, you're looking at the accounts. How are you deciding on which customers are good ones to pull in? How are you building those relationships with the customers? Like, and what are you doing in order to identify that and sort of build that pipeline?
Yeah, great question. I think sometimes as marketing practitioners, what often happens is we get very focused inwardly, right? We think about what's best for our organization and how do we drive value for our company. I think one of the beauties of being in a customer marketing role is we don't carry a quota, we don't carry a number per se, right? We're not directly on the hook for attribution. And what I've really loved about this role in the last few years is that increasingly it's about the psychology. And answering your question directly, what it really comes down to is understanding motivations because everybody comes to work for a different reason, right? Some people it is a job, but for a lot of people it's a passion and a career. And what I've really observed, and Yvonne said it very nicely, is our product works. And so people become very passionate about that, and they see it as part of their career development that they want to get better and better and continue to bring more value for their organization and by extension themselves. So I like to think about it in terms of three different areas of motivation psychologically for our customers. And this is kind of how we also think about alignment too. There are some customers who are really just trying to prove in their organization, hey, I'm delivering value, right? And they're trying to get more money, more resources, or maybe they're trying to move up in their organization. There's also, we know it's a super dynamic market, right? It has been for a long time, and it's no difference in digital commerce. It's evolved massively in the last few years. That people are also looking for the next opportunity, either within the broader community or within, just the industry in general. So they're also looking to kind of build their profile so they can move on or move out to the next role. And then there's a third group, and it's kind of why Yvonne and I are here today, who are just passionate about what we do. We love the discipline of ABX or customer marketing. So we're also looking to kind of build more relationships and with other leaders and kind of really figure out what's going on as well. And it's almost like that shout out capability. So when I think about motivations and thinking about my customers, it's kind of, are they looking to move up? Are they looking to move out? Are they looking to shout out? And we've had customers who've doing all three at the same time.
Sure.
And so to be able to understand, okay, this is what's motivating individuals, and then think to Yvonne's point in think about that scorecard. Okay, so how are we aligning and understanding what our ABX prospects are looking to do? What are they trying to do in their organization? What are they trying to build for themselves? Because by extension, business is personal. And if they can build success with themselves, they're going to build success with their organization, their own customers too.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. Um, I like that psychological approach. You don't really think
Yeah,
about it that way from a
right.
customer advocacy perspective, but that's really spot on. Um,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and
Yvonne, like,
to elaborate on that, we'd say oftentimes ABX is or ABM is people-based marketing. You're marketing
Mm-hmm.
to the humans that are
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
making these decisions.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, just marketing at them. It's you want them to feel seen and understood and know that we care about them and we want the best for them. And that might be through all the ways that David just mentioned.
hmm yeah. Um, those are that's a great tip for I think a lot of marketers out there. Whether you're doing ABM or just demand gen in general, right? Like
Right.
you're selling still to people, and I think we
Mm-hmm.
forgot about that, in the last decade or so, especially with all the tools that have been introduced and all the things that can tell us a lot about what like an account is doing or people are doing, but we forget about the people side of it, right? The emotional side, the piece that actually people buy from is
Yeah.
how somebody or a brand makes them feel, right?
We have a great example of that where we had a recent prospect, and David can elaborate more on this, but he came to, well, I think there's a couple, but came to our large customer event looking for people who had anything wrong to say with Forder and couldn't find anything. And then there was another one that's actually the wrong guy. The other one, he came and met with a lot of existing customers while he was making his decision. Really enjoyed those conversations, enjoyed the entire event. and then eventually signed on with Forder, and in that process shared with the customer advocacy team and the accounts team that he wanted to sort of not return the favor, but he was so passionate about the decision that he made, be available to anyone who's exploring Forder so that he can then share his experience and why he made the decision. And that really shows how this person is really, stepping up and wanting to do that. And that's obviously that builds his own brand because he's shown as a leader and someone who knows what about big decisions like this and has made big decisions. But it really is a testament to, the experience he probably had and he did have leading up to signing with us.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, I think we I don't know if a lot of listeners' organizations do the same thing, but as part of our annual kickoff meeting, global kickoff meeting, we invite customers to come and be part of that.
Yeah.
And again, I talked about psychology, but we ask the customers to explore what it means to make a decision, because you've obviously got a lot of people in the room that maybe never touch a customer in their day-to-day, right? They may be working more on the finance team or the HR team. And what really was really powerful this year was the idea that, look, to us, it might be a contract, but to them making a big decision, and at the end of the day, these can be multi-million-dollar decisions, right? It can be career defining, both positively or negatively.
Yeah.
And so he talks a little bit about the pressure of making that decision. And I think that also ties nicely into the work that Ivonne and the team are doing around ABX, because part of the responsibility that we have is to surround those people with others that can help them, whether it's from Forter, whether it's from partners, whether it's from the customers, to help showcase or show, like, look, this is a big decision, but you're going to come out the other side and it's going to be a net positive for you in all these different ways. And actually, we're here to support you as well.
Right. And that could be, again, on top of that, messaging tools, whatever they need to communicate it within their own organization.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And Ivonne, you just talked about one example of like having a prospect come and talk with other customers. I know you've got a couple of other examples you'd love to share. So, tell us about, some other examples of where the customer advocacy and ABX teams have worked together to really drive that revenue and close business.
Yeah, I think another example is an organization that we were looking to get to know better and hopefully have some face time with, and we scheduled a customer panel discussion. David was the MC. He's really good in that role as a facilitator discussion. And we planned that event. We in the idea, in the sense that we do care and we want it about these ABX accounts and all accounts. But in this case, we were looking to get to know someone or a few people in particular. We planned the event. This was in DC, in their backyard, like as close as we can make it so that it is easy and convenient. And that's what you do for the people that you want to get to know better. You make it easy for them. And so had customers on the panel. David was the MC, got the right people in the room from the organization we were targeting. And really, the flywheel effect is that it benefits not just the brand that we're looking to get to know better, but anyone else in that area. So in DC in particular, other brands can join, other customers can join. It really does kind of ripple from there. And David, do you have anything to add on that?
I do. And I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of the fact that a lot of potential customers are all facing the same pain points. And we talk about ICPs and we talk about messaging and that kind of stuff. But the ability to bring folks into a room is super powerful, right? And in this instance, Ivonne was talking about the one down in DC. This was all about how do you build loyalty with customers?
Right.
And at a time when, if you're a merchant or retailer, you're under a lot of pressure right now, right? You're under pressure to kind of not only attract and retain the best customers, but how do you actually build loyalty and build more value for them, for your organization, and ultimately for your shareholders as well?
Yeah.
And so orientating around that topic and bringing in different folks, different personas within key buying centers was super powerful, because we ended up really pressing on an area that we knew was a major pain point. We were able to bring data that we got from our own analytics, right? And we were able to bring customers into the room. And so part of the beauty of that within an ABX setting is, yeah, you might be facilitating it, but there's not the
Right.
pressure on you necessarily to come up with all the answers, right? The answers are within the community.
Yeah.
And what actually happens is the conversation you think you're going to have is partially true. But the conversation you really have is truly authentic, because you end up with practitioners talking to each other and you end up getting the benefit. And my mom always used to say, David, you're born with one mouth and two ears for a reason, right? You have to listen more than you speak. The beauty of that is being able to almost be a fly on the wall and listen to some of the stuff that's going on. And that's super valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something else to add on to that is we make it super clear it's not a selling event. There's no selling that goes on. It is thought leadership, peer collaboration, connection. And that's the priority for those types of experiences.
Yeah.
I love that, what your mom said, David. That was good.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that.
What I really like about that is that those events like that sort of serve multiple purposes. So you've set it up, Yvonne, as an ABX high value offer type event where you're very specifically targeting an account or a group of accounts in that area, region, something like that. And you're messaging something very specific to them. But on the other hand, you're also, David, being able to use that event as an opportunity to allow customers to tell their story and really build up their brand and build that relationship with them and Forder, right? So you really get some multiple benefits out of that, and continues to just increase the foundation that you're building with those particular customers already.
Yeah,
Right.
and I want to come back to something that Ivonne said at the start of the session, which is really important, is that like trifecta, the holy trinity, effectively, of what she just talked about. Because if you could establish that, and it's not going to work for every single organization. I'm sure there's folks who are listening to this, like, yeah, great, I don't have a great product right now, whatever, right?
Right.
but if you could be in a position of where you have the holy trinity, effectively, what that actually allows you to do is then focus on how do we build community.
Right.
And that's where it's really powerful. And that's, I think, what Ivonne and the team have done really well, is you almost organically create this environment where, again, we're the host, but it's about the people coming together and networking and sharing and and then feeling that they can then reach out to people within that meeting or within that network themselves without Forte being involved. And coming back to the example that Ivonne gave, right? Our last Impact conference last year, one of our big prospects, he did come with the sole purpose of finding one unhappy customer amongst the 250. He didn't find anybody.
Not one.
Give me a reason not to believe.
Exactly. But what he found was this passion and energy, and he was making connections himself, right? And so that's the beauty. We'll talk about revenue flywheel, but you're creating a community flywheel. You're creating a personal flywheel for people to want to feel like they belong,
Yeah.
Pretty special.
Yeah.
All right. So all of this is great. Are you closing business? How do you actually measure the success of these things? And is it working for you? I mean, other than great ideas, good stuff that you guys are talking about, I'm yeah, we definitely should. Everybody should do this. But what kind of success are you seeing?
Yeah, from a success perspective, what we're seeing is we're seeing higher value when our deals move from stage to stage. They grow in value compared to, say, accounts that are not in ABX. We're also seeing significantly less lost deals at every stage. And then we're seeing, because they're focused on very large opportunities, it obviously kind of pays for itself when you have one deal close. So we're certainly seeing the ROI from a revenue perspective. So those are some of the metrics, but we look at basically sales stage progression, and we look at close win revenue, and that's where we're seeing the success.
Yeah. How about you, David? How are you able to, measure success and see, basically elevate, hey, this is what we're doing, and be able to talk about that even in the organization?
Well, Rachel, it comes as no surprise to you that I am a storyteller and a creative at heart. And so, unlike Ivonne, who is a wizard at the reporting, I'm on a journey, right, with this. And I think this is true within customer marketing, that we are storytellers by heart. But I consider myself a little bit on version 1.0, which is we have got more discipline working with the ops team in really making sure that we're attaching customers to different Salesforce campaigns. And so whether it's for events or the work that Ivonne's doing, we are now able to track, we've got these customers mobilized against these particular workshops or events, whatever else it is. So that at least allows me to track at an influence level. And as I mentioned, I don't own attribution, right? That's not my role.
Sure.
I view myself almost like a point guard in a basketball team, right? And that my greatest aim is if I can get 20 assists per night, awesome.
Right.
I don't need to score tons of points because that's what Ivonne's going to go and do. So from my perspective, what my team tracks is how are we influencing pipeline and how we're helping teams like Ivonne's accelerate deals as well. And that's pretty clear because it's black and white, right? You can look at which events we've got customers activated against, which deals have we got, basically using those events with those customers to help accelerate those deals as well, right?
Yeah.
So this is phase one. Now,
Well, and just to
ahead.
elaborate, because
Yeah.
someone might be thinking, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? And sometimes it's a bit manual at first. So that's
Yeah.
important for someone
Sure.
who's listening to this, where our teams meet once a week. They are constantly collaborating on, like, here's something that's coming up. We need a customer who could speak to this, or a case study, or whatever that might be. But some of the dirty work is after an event. So say that event, our teams get on the call and it's like, David, okay, here's the customer that spoke to this prospect and this customer stopped. So we have a spreadsheet that's
Yeah.
just tracking which customer talked to which prospect so that we can then eventually tell the great story that David is so talented at doing. But it's important to know that. And I think the other thing to note, I'm just thinking of people new to ABX, is anecdotal success when you don't own the quota is critical. I mean,
Yes.
testimonials, the
Great point.
prospects, oftentimes we were one day, we had kind of an experiential meeting that took place, and it was in a lineup of multiple vendor meetings that took place all in one day. And it was a high level retail brand. They said, you know what, the way you guys showed up, it stood out. You win for the day. That type of anecdote, write down the testimonial, have the brand internally that you can share, and put that on the slide. Even internally, we had one of our very top, or he is our top, I believe, sales rep within Forder. He started his QBR with, I will never work for an organization that doesn't have an ABX program because it is so valuable to his pursuits. And that says a lot when you're talking
that's
about your
huge.
top sales guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the anecdote and that is, I would say that would be a recommendation. I think you're going to ask me later. That's one of them is you're not going to have hard numbers and that story to tell in the beginning. You have to start with the anecdotes and track all of them so that you can share them and keep building your own internal brand for ABX and for customer advocacy, right?
Yeah.
Rachel, can I build on that for a second?
Of course.
Because that is such a critical point that Ivonne touches on. Because if you were to talk to 50 different CMOs and 50 different CEOs, they'll all have a different interpretation of what ABM or ABX means to them based on their experience or based on what they're trying to drive towards. And I think what Ivonne's articulated really well there, what she's really done a masterful job at doing is constant communications internally of here's what the ABX program is, here's what we're doing, here's the value it's driving, and like being very good at publishing those quarterly business reviews of like, this is what we've moved forward. And what's been great is taken 6 quarters maybe, but now the senior leadership all understand, all right, this is what we're driving towards.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's celebrating the little mini wins along the way until you get that first deal closed, because by just in its nature, ABX program is focused on the largest deals, which they are not, it's not a short runway. I mean, there's no expectation that a deal at an ABX, if you're doing it right and aligning it to the right size organizations, it's not going to close in 3 months, period.
Correct.
It's going to take a year or more.
So true.
And that's the reality of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, Ivonne, you've done a great job of not only just setting expectations about like, here's what we are about and here's what we're not going to do. Right. And the time frame, right. And the patience that's needed and like all the things, but also then in those QBRs, like really doing marketing of marketing And
Right.
which
You're
so many
building your
leaders
own brand.
really, yes,
Yeah.
really struggle with is like, how do we talk about what we're doing at an executive level that executives can understand? It sounds like you've done a great job at that. So bravo to
Yeah.
you.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, okay. So for leaders who are, or even marketers who are just sitting here, if I lead an ABX program, or say I'm leading my customer advocacy team, how do I go and just start, what kind of some first steps that you would recommend in sort of starting to create that stronger alignment between the two?
Well, I think the start is recognizing that you can't, and this kind of goes to the ABX story. You can't do it alone. Even if you have, sometimes you are alone as one person who's doing ABM in an organization, and that's just the truth. And maybe you have one other person that's helping you when you start, and that's fine. But you have teammates, and we are lucky to have a great marketing team. But David is a partner when it comes
Mm.
to ABX. I mean, you can tell, like he said, he's aligning to the different programs where customer advocacy can support. And he and our events team within everybody actually has really latched on to, like, we're all in on ABX too. How can we help you be a successful ABX team? So it opened my eyes. I mean, I've often been in that ABM world where it's been very siloed. I have had that experience. And
Yeah.
here we're all working together to get these brands across the line. So I would say, look around your marketing team and see who can be a partner to you and
Mm,
share the benefit. Also don't start too big. Don't try to go out the door with 50 accounts. Start with 5, or start with that one great sales rep. And you'll hear that on every ABX podcast, I think, that
yeah.
we've ever
It's
heard. It's
true.
like, get
Yeah.
that. But you have to get, we have the two top salespeople in the organization are probably the biggest fans of ABX because they take advantage of the ABX support more than any other rep. And I
Yeah.
think that is oftentimes, when you have a solid ABX program, the reps who take advantage of the resources around them tend to do the best and see the most
Yeah.
success. So that's a long-winded story to say, look around, see who could be a partner to you, kind of get the buy-in on the idea, and then work together and start small with a very solid sales rep. But also, in tangent, you have to have that higher level support and selling it to the leaders. That if you can start with that one rep and kind of proof of concept, I think that could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is super important, and look, you got to be able to crawl before you can walk, before you can run,
Yeah.
right? But I think one of the other things that's super helpful is more and more organizations are moving towards OKRs, or some form of objective key results.
Yep.
And I think a part of that alignment work is also taking common KRs.
Right.
So like Ivonne and I's team, we both have 2 or 3 KRs related to our objectives that are actually shared. And
That
so
overlap.
they do. And so when you're doing that grunt work of like tracking and like, hey, where has this helped? We're looking from our side at like, okay, so Ivonne has a metric about moving X number of these forward, like 2 stages within the next 2 quarters. Okay, so what are we doing there from a customer marketing perspective to support that, right?
Yeah.
And that alignment's super important, not only for our teams, but also as you ladder up in the organization to your senior leadership, it also reinforces like, hey, we're looking at this as a holistic approach, and that the organization's behaving like that, right? And that
Mhm.
reinforces good behavior, even at that executive level too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Props
really
to
good point.
David. David's the one that reached out to me and said, let's look at our OKRs and compare and see where they overlap. So I
Mm.
really appreciated when he did that. And I think you're right. That makes great sense to even have a stronger partnership with your
Mhm.
teammates who are supporting the programs.
Yeah, it's a forcing function, right? To that partnership. Put skin in the game for everybody,
Mm.
right? We can
Right.
say we're gonna have great partnership, but when
Right.
your goals match up, now you're really in it. Yeah.
It
Mhm.
does help.
Locking
Yeah.
arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an evolution, right? I mean, the KRs are great in many respects because it gives you a direction, it gives you a North Star.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
what we're lucky within our organization is we're held accountable, but at the same time, there's some latitude to be like, look, we didn't hit it 100%, but we got 80%. And
Mhm.
I think leadership's like, all right, that's still a long way further along than we were
Right.
6 months ago, right? So that's also important, is to within a culture, find that ability to say, look, we're moving in the right direction. It's not going to be perfect every time, but that we can adapt and learn and continue to move.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's your cadence look like for connecting? Like, how often are you and your teams meeting to coordinate and really understand what you're trying to do? What does that look like operationally?
Yeah, our teams meet weekly. David and I have a bi-monthly meeting as well, so we can connect as leaders. But the teams work weekly, and I think that's key, because I think at one point we were monthly, or it was spread out a bit, and there was this sense of like all these things that were out, and trying to keep track of what was going on, and really that weekly connection to say, okay, here's what's coming up, here's what's needed, what's the status on that case study, or getting the customer on board to present at this panel, and all of that. It's just logistical and very, like you said, administrative and operational. And if you don't have the touch point, it can get lost. And it really does help to have the weekly cadence.
I think reflecting for your audience. So, like as Ivonne said at the top, we've got great products and we've got great customers. And I think for your audience, partly it's understanding where your strengths are, right? And so for an ABX practitioner within the audience, it might be that you've got great product. So anchoring with that team within the marketing team is super important, right? Because that's your real strategic strength. For other companies, it might be something completely different. But I think it's really, because you can't boil the ocean, as everyone said. You can't go and work with every single part of the organization, because you spend literally 40 hours in meetings every single week, right?
Yeah.
And so it's how you anchor around the stuff that it makes a difference for your customers and makes a difference for the team and for the organization.
What kind of challenges or pitfalls should people be on the lookout for? Like, what as you're doing this or starting to put this in place, or you're already doing this, what are some of the things that could trip people up in being successful?
I think the big one is there's certainly the boiling the ocean. If you try to do too much too fast, you will even too fast, if you try to take on too many accounts, you will dilute the effort and the impact that you can have at an account-based level. And if you start trying to and it will happen. I've had this in other organizations where the teams that are supporting the ABX team start to push back and will say, can we just templatize this? Can we just plug and play? And then that starts pulling away from the true essence of account-based experience and account-based marketing. And so at Forder, we've actually, as our team has grown, this is so key to the success of ABX, is you can't just add an ABX manager and expect to do more ABX. Because when you add an ABX manager, you need more design support, more content support, another, X number of counts that need more customers to be on the panel or in conversation. So it is not a quick solve. And what'll happen with ABX is you'll start small, you'll have quick wins. And then next thing you know, and this happened to us, the executives are like, how can we do more? How can we do more?
Of course.
And we've had to push back and say, yes, we can do more. But if we're going to hire an ABX manager, we have to hire more design resources and content resources. So I would just say, watch the scaling of your program and make sure you keep true to the account-based experience and the customization, because that's where you're going to make a difference. And if you start diluting that effort, eventually it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Just to build up. Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Rachel. I was
going to say I would.
You go.
No, go ahead, David.
No.
You're the guest, my friend.
No. I love it. Go.
Yeah. So I was going to say to you, David, I would guess as you're trying to scale your ABX and you've got more customer advocacy that's needed, like, how do you protect your customers, that base of individuals, from being oversaturated as well, or like you're over tapping those individuals, right?
The front line, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure the front line isn't overused.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great question. And that's exactly where I was going to go. So we were in perfect mind meld there.
Look at us. Yeah.
And I'm going to use a bureaucratic term here, because you're right. One of the things we care deeply about is utilization. Because at the end of the day, our customers aren't really there to do our marketing for us.
Yeah.
Right? And we sometimes lose sight of that because what happens is you get some customers that are super engaged and super passionate, and suddenly it feels like piranhas because everybody wants a piece.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we're trying to do, and it's not easy, we have not cracked the code on this, right? Is we are now really good at tracking utilization. So what are we asking, for example, Rachel to do? Where are we asking them to share their story? Or what are we asking them to get involved in terms of programs? We track all that stuff. What we've done a less good job on right now, we're working towards, is then establishing guardrails to never lose sight of what's in it for the customer in all these engagements, right? And how do we not only protect the customer, but we have a really great customer success team. And we have to maintain that relationship with them because at the end of the day, their job is to service and make sure the relationship with the customer is really strong. We continue to retain our customers, but also how do we grow them as well? And so what you don't want to do, there's such a fine line between saying, hey, we want to be able to go and ask the customers to do X, Y, Z, with then the customer success manager being like, whoa, hang on a second, right? We've got to make sure we're protecting the business first and foremost. So I think from my perspective, even though it's a boring word, utilization is so important. And we get overrun sometimes with requests, similar to what Ivonne mentioned as leaders want more, right? And we just can't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, we want the customers to want to come back and help us and feel part of the community, but not to the point where they get burnt out and say enough.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and I love your perspective, David, because I do believe David's team, their heart is in promoting the brand, the personal brand of these customers. And it's shown in how we do customer advocacy. And it's even been proven with customers getting promoted, customers moving on to new opportunities. And a lot of that is because their light is being shown brighter because they're working with Border and someone like David is helping to shine that light on them. So I think it makes a huge difference. And I believe that kind of heartfelt approach that it's about them first makes a significant difference, not just about us getting what we need out of them.
Yeah. And I think what your point is, like, that heartfelt, it's got to be authentic. It's got to be genuine.
Authentic.
You're doing it. Not, you don't, yes, you have ulterior like outcomes that you want to get from it, but the foundation of it is genuinely, I want to elevate you and your story.
It has to be win-win.
Can I actually give one example? It's a little tangential, but this is the power of doing it right and the power of community. I'm thinking particularly about one of our customers. I'll just use her first name, Jenny. And she last year was a member of our community online, posted that part of what she wants to do for her professional goal was to get within the top 10 of the leaderboard of our community, achieve that. We kind of saw that. We invited her to come and speak at our conference. She actually joined a panel, which was like a bake-off against 3 different practitioners. She won that.
Right.
And then she actually joined, we launched something called our mentorship program, our Impact Mentorship Program. And she joined that as well. And so we matched her with another practitioner in the industry who was an expert within data. And so I actually happened to talk to her this week. And she said, it's been so helpful because what this mentor did was he basically took me to math camp. And I was, based on what I saw at Impact last year, I'm building my business case for 2026. And she said, one of the things I realized is I needed more data to go to senior leaders to be able to justify what I want to do. And my mentor actually is an expert in this area. And he basically sent me to math camp for 2 weeks and to dig into the data. And she said, I've got my presentation next week to the leadership. And I feel so ready to go and talk and defend my case and build my program for next year. And it's because I've had this access to people and resources that I can go and do this. I feel confident to go and do that. And that for me is a super powerful story. I've actually got a bunch of those stories, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're doing, if we do it right, is we're helping people lift themselves up in their role and showcase the value and build on what they know can work and be an expert in the field. And we know now people don't stay in their roles for their entire careers. So people are going to move on to the next role, right? And if you build that relationship, then it's almost like an organic motion that next time they move on, they're going to reach out again.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
the win for us is those beautiful stories feed right back into our ABX effort
Yeah.
from an outreach perspective, from a connection perspective, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is great, you guys. Unfortunately, we are out of time. But I love how you guys have really built a strong partnership and relationship, and your teams seem to reflect that as well. So yeah, congratulations to you on building that
Thank you.
out. Thank you for being on the Rev Room and sharing your stories. Best of luck to you guys, and
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate having on.
Thank you. It's a privilege. We appreciate it.
Yeah, nice job. It's been such a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Rev Room today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. For more, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Don't forget to follow Inverta on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. That's Inverta, INVERTA. Have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Reach out and let us know. Until next time, keep innovating and driving that revenue growth. See you next time.